This is for week 6, biology 213 lab with Soheir, Rizk, and I'll be answering discussion week 6 questions. So the first question is, your x-ray exam reveals that you have fractured your fibula. Your physician remarks, well, it's better than breaking your tibia. Explain why a fracture of the tibia would be worse than a fracture of the fibula. So breaking or fracturing the tibia poses a greater risk of also fracturing the fibula at the same time of impact, and it will completely put the patient's mobility out for the entire lower leg of what got broken. And speaking of that, recovery time is dramatically different. If you break your tibia, that's already 6 months, at least 6 months worth of rehab and recovery and surgery time. So as compared to the fibula, if you break that, you're looking at a few weeks to maybe 2 or 3 months worth of rehab. So it's definitely more fortunate that you break or fracture your fibula than your tibia, definitely. And the second question is, an individual with very low levels of vitamin D presents themselves to you, complaining of seemingly fragile bones. Explain how these might be connected. So, all bones are made of vitamins and minerals, and the main vitamin that makes bones is vitamin D. And you can get that from sun or your diet and other supplements as well. So when you're not getting enough vitamin D, be it from the sun or your diet or anything else, your bones will become very brittle and more prone to fracturing. And if you're not properly eating, or when you're in your mother's womb and you don't get the right nutrients, you could be born with rickets, which is one of the most severe forms of vitamin D deficiency. And your legs could be shaped like this, and you could have very brittle bones, could break at almost anything. So that's definitely associated with vitamin D, brittle bones. And the last question is, during the early years of space exploration, our astronauts who had been floating in space would return to Earth showing significant bone loss, dependent on how long they were in space. Discuss how this might happen and what could be done to alleviate the condition. So, in space, there's no gravity. There's almost no gravity. And of course, on Earth, we have gravity. And with gravity, it's always putting pressure on your body. You don't even notice, but just standing around, put so much pressure on each of your bones and each of your vertebrae. They like compress. And so that also brings a little bit of why in space we become weightless. You still have some weight, but you're probably down about like 1/3 of your weight in space. But yeah, so why your bones become so like less dense in space is because of the lack of pressure on them. So they have room to stretch. And one theory is that the cells that make your bones notice the change, like, wow, we're not bearing so much weight. The body is not bearing so much weight on us. So it might slow down production of osteoblasts. And so your bones, over time, depending on how long they were in space, will become super light and almost completely stop producing osteoblasts. So that could happen, and it has happened. And actually, when the astronauts come back from space, they come back a little bit taller, about 3 inches, but it's very short-lived. But that's also due to the lack of gravitational compression that they experience in space. So what could be done to alleviate this? Maybe they could, honestly, what could defy gravity? Maybe they could have supplements when they get back to Earth, and actually most astronauts do get supplements when they come back to Earth. And I think the The most they ever found an astronaut had lost about 20% of his bone density, 20 to 30%. That's a lot. And they have to relearn how to walk again, some of them. And it's a whole process. So it's quite interesting, actually, the relation to gravity and weight and how the body reacts to a different environment. It's really cool. So yes, that was my answers for week 6.